So what do you think of the current list? What's your overview of the list we've put together?
I think it's a list with a lot of potential, with a couple of glaring issues that for some reason we just keep failing to fulfill or address, rather.
Right, so when's the last time we recruited a key position player?
About 1980.
Or drafted. So we've had to do things like trade for 28-year-old Jared Rufford.
That was an easy one to get.
And Lyndon Dunn,
Mm-hmm.
who was like 30 already when we got him.
Mm-hmm.
And they've both been good pickups. I mean, unfortunately, Lyndon Dunn did his knee, or did two knees. But he was a revelation when he was there.
Mm-hmm.
But it says something that you're having to go out and find these guys
On the recycle bin.
Yeah. And you've been lucky that they have been on the outer with their clubs and actually have translated to, really good fullbacks. Before that, they were doing...
the positive people out there will say that's it's an indicative sign of a good culture when they come into the club and they hit the ground running, and they're clearly better players inside of this environment than the...
Well, everybody hits the ground running.
But that just means they came from a shitter club.
Yeah, but everyone hits the ground running when they come.
And actually, in both those cases, maybe not so much the Roughhead, but certainly Darden came from a basket case.
Well, Roughhead was a premiership player, or he's a premiership player. All right, but you look at the key positioners. So they've had to trade in two guys who are over 28. So even though you've gotten two good pickups, they have short-term careers at Collingwood. Nobody's expecting them. I mean, Lyndon Dunn's a really good example. Done two knees, and that's sort of the thing where you think, okay, well, as you get older, your body probably gets a bit more susceptible.
Mm-hmm. Or it's just Collingwood.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Then they've done things like got on Henry Shade from Gold Coast. That didn't work out. They had Jack Frost as a rookie. Jonathan Marsh, who was a very low pick, like pick in the 70s, I think it was. Corey Gold, another rookie. Mason Cox, who didn't know what football was 5 years. So the only key position that they've drafted, is Darcy Moore, and he was a father's son. So there's almost an entitlement there you're going to get him.
No, we were talking about this earlier, and you even go back to the cloak thing. These are father-son picks that you didn't have to work too hard to get them. You didn't have to go out and identify the talent track, watch them. You probably had them earmarked to come under that program.
Yeah. So you have to go back to guys like leading into that 2010 flag. From memory, they took Reid and Brown in 2007.
Yeah, the year that we flicked Taz.
Yeah, 2006, 2007. They took Dawes a year later. I think they took John Anthony about around there. And they had Cloak from a few years. I think 2005 was his first year. So they had a good spine of tall players there when they already had players holding those positions down in Wakeland, Prestigiacomo, Rocker and Clement. And all these new guys got games. So by the time these other guys went out, these new guys already had like 20, 30 games for the most part. I think Dawes came in relatively inexperienced in that 2010 side, but the rest had games here and there. So we really groomed them for very little vacuum of key position players. That's not happening now.
Mm.
We're taking Will Kelly, who's picked 30 around there, and that's it. Who are key position stocks? I don't know.
No, well, obviously...
And you're asking guys like Howe and Langdon to constantly play taller than they are. Maynard had to play on Darling at one stage this year because, again, injuries and stuff. And up forward, you're relying on Mason Cox, again, international rookie, and Brody Mychek, who was actually recruited as a key defender. And he was another rookie. So, and I love both those guys, but it's just like, if you want quality talls, then you need to spend, commensurate with what you're expecting. Now, I know you can find some really good players lower in the draft, but geez, we haven't really spent very much on finding those players, have we?
No, it's like we invest more in the search for a ruckman than we have with a key position forward. So like that Darcy that we've gotten from Sydney.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's surely coming in as backup to the ruck. Like this year when we lost Cox, we didn't have a backup to help Grundy that was going to be viable, and clearly that he's brought in for that. I don't imagine he's come in with any aspirations to be a key forward. Certainly, judging by his highlights, that shouldn't be an issue. Not
We might try.
setting that expectation, but again, we're not really pursuing. I mean, I believe we're talking to that Ricardo, and he's been nominated or linked to us in the Riccardi in some Phantom drafts. It looks like they're addressing a need, but we're going to have to wait till pick 30 whatever to
the Phantom drafts are addressing a need. We don't know if we'll do it. Oh, sorry, I forgot McClarty was another one in there, a lower pick. So, and that obviously didn't work out. So, it really frustrates me.
He was brought in as a key defender, though, wasn't he?
Yeah, but I'm just sort of saying, like, anyone with any height, they really haven't brought these guys in. And they've almost been negligent. I know the argument might be we haven't had opportunities to draft these guys given, when we've had picks. But, I mean, if you go back to that Scharenberg-Freeman draft, I think that Hilmelberg was there. We could have had a shot at him. So I don't know why. Is it? Have they identified internally that they don't want any talls and they just want this running, droney side?
A lot of that comes back to that because you remember Buckley was talking at the end of Hawthorn's dominance is that you don't look to template sides on their decline. You look to those up and coming, and he often talked about the Dogs as being that template for the future where they had those really small, hard running types all over the place. But then you got to realistically look at one of the key reasons they won the flag was that bringing Boyd in.
Boyd, number one draft pick.
And then, even this year with Richmond and Lynch, there's still a need for these big-bodied key position forwards.
So we disagree on this one, but I'll throw it out. Darcy Moore, forward or back?
Look, I see merit in both the arguments. I keep looking at his performances down back, and I like what I see. If you move him up forward, there's a void there that needs to be filled. But however, this year, who we got coming back? Dunn, I don't think will be ready.
Do we have anyone coming back? I don't know. Maybe we're cloning someone.
But, look, if there's an opportunity to free him up, and look, you play him as a swingman and have the best of both worlds, I would have thought. But how often did he ever get swung up forward? I think maybe once, twice this year. I think it ever happened.
From memory, it was only against North when we're like 8 goals down already. So I don't know if you expected Moore to kick 12 goals in the quarter. For me, you can find really good key defenders lower in the draft. Case in point is Jerry McGovern.
It's an easy job to do.
Yes.
Just got to stand there and punch the ball.
That's like run and punch. So he was a rookie pick. Barras was like about pick 30 or 40. I know there's been a couple of higher picks like Phil Davis for the GWS, like a pick 8 or whatever. But I think when you have guys who have flair, that's more suited to the forwards. Now, if you look at the premiers of the last 10 years, I'm actually going to go back that far. So Richmond, Rewalt, I think it was pick 13. Tom Lynch would have been a top 10 pick. Who won the flag before Richmond? Bulldogs, Boyd, pick 1. Hawthorn, Roughhead, pick 5. Roughhead and Franklin, pick 5 and 3.
But the thing is, like, even
Collingwood, Travis Cloak would have been the top 10 pick.
We were allegedly heavily into Lynch and tried really hard to get him across. So if you're busting a hump to get that one guy,
then you recognise
then why aren't you? Yeah,
you recognise as an issue.
Why aren't you then pursuing everyone else that's got one up and coming? Surely, this trade period, we haven't grabbed anyone of height or targeted. When we talked about identifying for need, but nothing's really come of it.
My queries with Moore is the things that people love about him as a defender would be what makes him dangerous as a forward. He's attacking, he's a good mark, he's quick through size. That's great as an intercept defender, but as a forward, that's exceptional. I think, I've said this to you before, as a defender, there's too many instances a defender can't impact. And Jeremy Cameron proved that in the prelim. On the lead, Moore just got chopped up. I'm not blaming Moore, but it's like, well, why are we wasting all your talent down there following a guy who's 10 metres in front of you? You might as well throw someone else there. Let's put you into our forward line where you can do the same to them. Moore's never actually got him to play in a functional Collingwood forward line. The years that he was there as a young, skinny, up-and-comer, and we all recognise forwards take longer to develop. And people are sort of like, I know there's certain people like getting frustrated that he wasn't doing enough. It's like, well, what are you expecting to do in that side? I mean, the one thing that annoys me with criticisms in football, but like when it comes to the Collingwood, and I saw Anthony Rocker cop this quite a bit too, is like people expect the key forward to mark the miraculous marks when the midfield kicks it 50 metres, bombs it in the air, allows the forward to get quadruple teamed, and they're going, oh geez, why isn't the forward marking? You saw Cox just getting pilloried this year. Why aren't you taking marks? Well, maybe if you stop kicking it totally to his disadvantage while he's got three players hanging off him, he might get it. The one game you actually got it to him quickly against West Coast, kicked 4 goals.
Freo. Wasn't it Freo?
No, it was West Coast the one where we came back and won by a point.
Oh, yeah.
Lost to Freo. It's one of these things like you got to be able to use the forwards' talents. More, I would actually like to see now that we do move the ball with a little bit of skill. I'd actually like to see him thrown up there and actually, see what he's got as a full forward. The reason I'm saying this too is I think it's a lot harder to fill this spot at full forward than it is to fill that spot at full back.
The problem with doing this is that Coxie won't get a game.
So be it. And this is one thing, so this goes right into my next point. If you're going to run a club, run a team, you got to be fucking ruthless. Alright? So you got to pick your best 22. Not, let's play this guy because we want to be, good sports about it. And I had a lot of arguments with people at the start of this year when we took Dane Beams. Said, I'll take him, but not for what they're charging us. There's too much romanticism attached to that trade. And there's too much, for me, politicising about that trade. That let's get this guy back. You're left on bad terms with Buckley. How's it going to look when we bring him back? Buckley opens him with welcome arms and blah, blah, blah. How good's it going to look? Now, the thing that shits me with the Beams trade is you've had to shed James Aish now. People are saying, well, I don't know if it's true, but the journalists are reporting our salary cap's really tight. How did you not know that last year? Surely any good list management would have said, okay, in the next 4 years, you're going to get guys like Grundy, Moore, DeGoey, Stevenson. They're the obvious names who are going to put their hand out and say, I want a lot more money now because they're going to capitalise on their talent. And then you'll get guys like Maynard, Crisp, these guys who are actually going to say, yeah, well, I'm a pretty good player now too, so give me some money. Why did you not factor that in when you approached that Beams trade? Seeing that they had to shed that Aish, I would have really just said about Beams, yeah, we'll take him if it's pick 19 and that's it. We're not paying any more for that. We can't actually fit him in. We'll take him for 2 pick 19s and you can front his 2/3 of his salary for the next 4 years. We can't afford it. We got players who are going to be asking for salary increases, so we need to keep room for them. That to me borders on negligent, that they actually did that. Now, this has got nothing to do with retrospective wisdom because Beams hasn't worked out on field. You look at Richmond. Richmond won the flag. A year later, picked up Tom Lynch. Collingwood loses a grand final and now have to get rid of a player. And according to what the journalists were saying, we had so many players on the market because we're trying to free up salary cap room. So, if that's true, that is deplorable. I mean, how do you feel about the Beams trade?
Oh, it's not looking great at the moment. He's got another 3 years to acquit himself. But
to acquit himself?
Acquit himself? Is it?
Yeah. I just mocking Collingwood.
Yeah. So at the moment, it's not looking great. Now, he gets his self right, gets his body right, gets his headspace right, and starts a pre-season. Then you might get another year out of him at a good level.
How good though?
30 next year? Or
yeah.
He's at that age where breaking comes natural.
So he's gone for 2 pick 19s, whatever it is. How good does he have to be to justify that expense?
Oh, he should have been holding up a premiership cup this year, I would have thought.
But I mean, in terms of just him, because he can't obviously win the flag by himself. So
no,
individually,
you'd expect him, for what we paid at his age, his contribution should have been above and beyond.
Yeah. So you'd expect him to be exceptional.
Oh,
not
definitely.
Not just a contributor, but exceptional.
And his form last year for the Lions should have dictated that was a good position. If you coming off a loss in a grand final, he should have been icing on the cake, but it just didn't work.
So I mean, it's ironic too that pre-trade week it was all the news was Collingwood's trying to find a way to trade back into the first round of the draft.
Well, you had one and you gave it away,
and that's again. So
and you've done that a couple of times now.
So you would have surely known before. It wasn't like they got to trade week or draft week. Sorry, and they said, "Do you realise we don't have a first draft pick?" It's like no one surely said that. Surely they knew they gave that up. Surely they knew taking Beams on was going to inflate the salary cap. So these are two mitigating factors which, extend from that trade, which no one thought through. And that shoots me. That, to me, was, again, that was an emotive decision. I'm sure, there obviously are professional reasons. He would have improved the team at his best and all that sort of shit. But sometimes you just got to look at it and go, you know what? This is not going to work for us. Sorry. We can't afford it, both in terms of what we've got to give up and fitting him in the salary cap.
It was a high-risk trade. I mean, granted, he had a great year last year, but he's had the mental health issues that really should be a warning, because obviously this thing, you just don't get over it and it goes away. He's had injury issues in the last couple of years. It was a high-risk trade in terms of the benefit. The reward, rather. Let's
say, hypothetically, he played the whole year. He won the Brownlow. We didn't win the flag. Has that trade paid off? And we now have to get rid of Aish. And we're still trying to trade back into the first round.
That's a hard one.
So to me, that still doesn't pay off the trade. In terms of what we know now, that we needed to get rid of a player, and that we've got this inflated salary cap, and we've lost an early pick in the draft. That, then I would have just said, no. So if you all hinged to like the trade success on, well, he was holding up the Premiership Cup and great, you contribute to that, then that would have been like a real, like picking a number on roulette, a specific number on roulette and winning. And that to me would have been like, if you look at the grand final, I would have said, all right, lost by 5 points. We'll get Moore and Elliott back. What we really need here is another key positioner and possibly a small crumbing forward. And I've said it to you before, I would have rather they went after Wingard than they went after Beams, because I reckon he would have fitted what we needed a bit better. I would have rather they went after that May a lot harder and played him, and still got him rough head, and played them two as the key position defenders and played more up forward. I think the Beams one was like not something we needed. As I said, I would have loved him back, but not at that cost. And now you see there's like continuing cost to it. So it doesn't, to me, seem very smart management.
No, and look, it's there. A lot of it feels like it's partly placating the masses too. That was Ned Guy's first year as list manager. I think they wanted to go out there and be seen to be landing a scalp. They couldn't get who they were chasing, and this just looked like a great opportunistic moment to make it happen. And I think we got bent over it.
Well, I think, I would have loved to see them say no. And I know that wouldn't have placated the masses, but I would have loved for them to just say, hey, we're not going to do the good guy thing. We're just going to do what's right for where we are and where we're going to be in the short term. Now, obviously, a football club is a cyclical beast in terms of salary cap, because you sign a player to 4 years, so it's like the salary cap's always going to change depending on the salaries you're paying for. But it's derelict to me that you would have known this salary cap's going to inflate, because you've got some young guns who are really going to start asking for money. Grundy was already an All-Australian ruckman last year. Sydney was sniffing around Darcy Moore, so these two are going to start paying. North Melbourne was sniffing around Jordan DeGoey. So why has nobody anticipated that, in a few years' time, we're going to have to pay these guys a lot more? Why somebody just said, yeah, let's take Beams on, it'll be tight, and then what's the strategy at the end of the year?
Yeah, and that's why I can't see the sense in giving Dunn another year. Who else do we extend? Reid.
Possibly Varco.
Probably Varco. Now, look, I can understand that you've got some seniority there and you've got some fallback, but the reality is they're going to be lucky to get on the park, the three of them.
I can only imagine.
I'd rather have jettisoned them for that savings and kept Aish, who looked like he was going to...
Oh, I was going to get to Aish.
He had a bit of potential.
Just with those guys, I can only imagine they're on now base salaries.
Which is still about $150k a year.
No, but I'm just saying, like, if you got rid of them and took in pick 58, it was going to be the same salary.
But we're going to talk about Aish a little bit, but I would imagine that, let's say, conservatively, Aish was on $300 to $400 a year.
Yeah.
We got rid of him. I don't think that's given us a huge amount back. Now, look, ultimately, too, we're talking about not so much salary that's already in place. This is about next year when guys like Reid, Varco and Dunn that'll be their last year's next year. So that money was coming back anyway. I would rather have jettisoned it now and kept Aish rather than wait off the inevitable and lose him.
But I'm saying with Reid and that, like, if they're getting paid base salary, you jettison now and you bring in the draft, they're just going to draftee. They're going to get the same salary.
Yeah, well...
So you're not really actually saving anything by...
No.
That's what I'm guessing. I'm guessing they're on nothing on the base salary, and they've been told, look, we'll play you, or we'll keep you on the list, but look, you aren't going to be break glass in case of emergency. We're not going to go to you as our first choices. Or, now that I've said that, fucking Knowles line up round one next year, all of them.
And play all 25 games.
Yeah, but I'm just sort of think, if they're on the base salary, then regardless of whether they're on the list or not, we still have been paying that base salary to someone. So, and I think they want, because of their lack of tools, they want a couple of guys who probably have experienced bodies who can come in, play 2-3 games, drop them again, and bring in whoever your best option. That's what I'm guessing. I don't know. Maybe they're just totally clueless. Aish. I'm really pissed off they did this trade. I'm massively pissed off.
Yeah, look, and Aish has pretty much come out and said he didn't want to go. He loved being at the club. I think his upside was look, before he got injured, he was tracking along beautifully. I think he would have been still a very handy player for us. I don't see the sense in jettisoning him now. It just doesn't... Look, it obviously frees up some space that we don't necessarily immediately need. We're not trading for anyone. This deal was done with about 15 seconds to go on trade day. It could have happily slipped aside because we weren't influencing any other trades or getting anyone in. So I just don't see the sense in it, really.
Well, when he really showed a lot of promise at Brisbane, he was playing as a half forward. He's come to Collingwood and been played as a half-back. Now, granted, at half-back, he hasn't been spectacular or anything. He hasn't showed like the dash of crisp or the sort of the mongrel of Maynard or anything like that. But you've pumped 50 games into him, and he's at 23 years of age. He's right in that age bracket where you want, the core of your side to be when you're challenging. Why? I don't know if internally they just don't rate him. Justin Longmuir obviously rates him because he wanted him. It's not like Collingwood shopped him around. Justin Longmuir actually asked for him. Unless Buckley rang up Longmuir and said, "Can you ask for Aisha?"
Take Aish. I think he's going.
But in terms of upside, if he stayed at that level for the rest of his career, then he's still a pretty solid player. But he had the potential to have really good upside, and I think he'll prosper in the next few years, and it'll be one of those ones where we're looking and go, we shouldn't have got rid of him.
So I mean, we've done it for an exchange of third rounders or something, wasn't it? And an early second rounder next year. Now, clearly, hopefully next year is some sort of enormous super draft, because I think we're trying to obviously get in to the start of it. Next year we'll have a first rounder finally for the first time in about 10 years. An very early second rounder, but then next year was there something? There wasn't priority pick. No, there was.
Why wouldn't get a priority pick?
No, for Gold Coast. Did they?
I don't know.
Oh no, it's this draft, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is for this year.
They got picks 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, so look, next year
7.
we could have a couple of handy early picks, but how that helps us now, I've no idea.
But the Aish ones are whatever it was. It's a low pick, so who gives a fuck? I mean, Aish surely they weren't bursting at the seams. I know Aish wanted security, but it's like you're contracted, so you know what, you're staying. That's all it gets down to. And if we lose you for nothing, we're pretty much losing you for nothing anyway, so you're going to fucking stay. Nobody's
coming out of contract this year now that hasn't been signed up, so there's no salary cap relief.
I don't. I mean, the one problem with trade, and I hate this trade period, because what's a really diplomatic way of putting it? Like this. 90% of journalists are so fucking full of shit. Someone should take them out and beat them with their shit. Because the amount of crap, and you get players now starting to call them out, going, that's just total fiction. How are you saying that? The amount of players we apparently shopped around to other clubs, the amount of issues that we had internally and all that sort of shit, and the other stuff that runs around and it's like the problem with fucking modern journalism, and I mean to go on a rant, is you say, oh well, you know what? Buddy Franklin's looking to come back to Victoria. Source close to me tells me he wants to finish with Hawthorn. Well, there it is. How the fuck do you query it? Because a source close to me says it, and I'm not revealing my source. So if you claim I'm a liar, just say, well, this is what my source tells me, and I take umbrage at you calling me a liar. They just make up whatever fucking shit they want, and then they peddle it as clickbait. And it's so irresponsible. I just wish all of them would fucking get the sack. Or go write for Neighbours or something if you're going to make up bullshit fiction. Sorry, so I went off on a tangent there, but that's what shits me in terms of, like, I don't know how tight our salary cap is.
No, look, it's all speculation. It's like me plucking numbers out of thin air just before. I don't know, and they wouldn't know. Who'd know?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
unless they start declaring salaries, no one knows.
No, and a few of the journalists, and I won't name them, but it's Damien Barrett and Tom Brown, and the amount of airspace they're getting now, it really does my head in.
It's just crap because you've got 6 shows a week on the radio and then repeat it all on some TV show at night. There's just a lot of airspace there to fill. It's too much coverage of football these days.
But anyway, we've sort of gotten off track. And part of the bullshit that came up was like the whole Grundy debate about, he's checking out his options, even though he's contracted. And Grundy came out repeatedly and goes, I'm happy to wait until next year.
He won't be allowed to, though.
We differ on this again. Would you give him 7 years? He's 25.
I would, but there's conditions with my 7 years.
What are the conditions?
I'd give him 5 years with 2 performance-based years at the tail end. So if you meet the criteria of the 5 years, you get your extra 2.
Okay.
But that's going to be then dependent on what your output is, the amount of games played, you pay... but then I'm not sure how the cap has to then cater for that. So, but there must be provisions for performance-based contracts. So you get a base wage, and then when you meet your targets, you do this, you play this, you move to this, then you get paid the extra on top. But somehow, though, that still has to be contained in the cap. But look, I think it wouldn't be unreasonable to think that in year 6 and 7, your output's going to be nowhere near the first lot, that your salary would then come back down at any rate. But I'd give him the 7, 5 definite with 2 performance-based.
I mean, that's fair enough if they can get him to agree to that. I don't even consider it, it's not even about Grundy. For me, it's just like, I wouldn't be signing anyone to 7 years. You don't know what you're going to get. And the example I use is Ben Reid. If you sign him in 211 as an Australian centre half back, you sign him for 7 years, and then you look at the way his career is really...
Well, essentially we have.
Yeah, we have. I know. Someone said that to me. But in terms of, imagine you're paying him top dollar for those 7 years, you'd be pretty disappointed on return. No offence, Ben. But you had a lot of injuries, and it's just too big a time frame to expect that nothing, especially at Collingwood, nothing untoward's going to happen.
And you look at the Franklin one now. He got 10 years. What year's he in there?
About 6 or something.
Yeah, and he can barely get on the park.
Yeah,
And look, they would have fully realised that was going to be the case, but they thought, look, it almost worked. They almost got 2 flags.
But almost ain't good enough. So
no, that's it. So again, you look at that and say it was a failure.
It is a failure, and I just. Honestly, with Grundy, if he's adamant on 7, no conditions, then Adelaide, get 3 first-round draft picks ready.
Yep.
And just talking on Grundy, because Grundy was going to be my next point, I think he's an elite ruck rover. When he starts doing it himself, when he plays as a mid, he's fucking unparalleled. As a ruckman, I still don't think he's anywhere near elite, because he gets those numbers which don't convert to... taps to advantage.
No, but there is massive scope for improvement there.
Yeah, there is. And I'm not blaming him specifically, because I've said there's some communication issue there, which I think...
and he acknowledged that at the end of the
day. And that really pissed me off, because this happened in the grand final in 2018.
Yeah,
and it's like, what? I'm not pointing this at Grundy. This is the whole club. And you know what? Even if a player was fucking up to that extent, not saying he is... But if the player was, I wouldn't blame him. I would blame the fucking coaching staff. It's like Mr. Miyagi said, no such thing as a bad student, just bad teacher. The coaching staff should be sitting there watching going, oh yeah, he's won 68 taps and 9 of them have gone to our players. Do we need to work on that? Fuck it. You should actually recognise there's an issue there, and you should actually be working to fucking remedy that. And... I didn't see that addressed anyway. Maybe it was, and it just wasn't translating. But that frustrates me. That
you don't think Rocker's working hard on it? All his abilities.
But who's in charge? Is it Rocker? Was the midfield coach? Is it Harvey? Is it Hockin? Is it Buckley?
Well, Rocker's a ruck coach, so surely his synergies would be working with the midfield.
Look, honestly, the other thing too is people sort of point fingers at assistant coaches, and I just say, we know what? I excuse all assistant coaches.
You're such an apologist.
It stops with Buckley. He's in charge.
The buck stops there.
Yeah. he should be looking at it like, and if Rock is not getting this work in, Buckley should go, well, Rock, you make this work, or you're fired. Or you're fired. That's all it comes. And whoever the midfield coach is, you make this work, or you're fucking fired. Okay, I'm sick of watching this. Because he's the one who oversees all of it. So it's ridiculous sort of for people to run around blaming just individual coaches and going, oh, well, they're doing a shit job. It's like, they're answerable to the guy in charge. If the guy in charge is not overseeing what's happening there, then you know what? That's the guy in charge's fault, not the fucking other guy's fault. Anyway, sorry, we're going to go on to coaches a bit later. The guy, where's he play in the future? North Melbourne?
Midfield.
Yeah, midfield for me. Treloar.
Another club?
Disappointing?
Oh, sorry, I thought you wanted to trade him.
No.
Not yet.
No.
Look,
he gets numbers.
I think it's a massive ask. Look, he's clearly got ability. He was always a massive ask to expect a lot coming off tearing both hamstrings off the bone. And he's come back, and I thought this year, do you cut him slack to say, look, it's still I'm rediscovering my body year?
No.
But look, his numbers were up high, but I think numbers just really overflate a player's output these days.
Numbers are bullshit nowadays.
You can chip the ball sideways for 20 minutes, and there's 10 or 15 possessions that suddenly make up that magical 30 to 40 range that really, what did you do at the end of it all? Better year. I still expect more from him.
Alright, so my problem with Treloar, I love Treloar, so you know what? This is not like a whipping boy or anything, but he is a guy I don't want to fucking see him inside a pack ever again.
No,
unless he's running right out of it. You know, he should be on the outside. He should be sprinting. He should be breaking lines. If he's just going to stand there and get handballs out, then you know what? Let's go fucking recruit. I don't know. Let's go get Shane O'Brien back to play that role, because that was, you know, the role of someone who is specialising in just feeding the ball out. Treloar has all these weapons and you're not maximising them. Again, part of that I think is Collingwood's fault, the coaching staff's fault. They should be working out ways to use him better. He's getting trapped in there, and if anyone thinks that that's translating to productivity just because he's getting numbers, they're fucking mistaken, because it's just not impacting the game.
Yeah, look, I think this year that was unfortunate necessity, because there was no one else. We didn't have Sy, we didn't have Wills, we didn't have Adams there for a fair period of the year. They're all blokes that relish the hard contest and will put their head over the ball and dish it out effectively. Him playing that role was just a disaster.
Yeah. Do you think our midfield's overrated?
Oh, absolutely.
So it's not the greatest midfield ever assembled?
Oh, no.
Do you think it's like in the top 10?
It has the potential, but I don't think it's in the top 20.
I don't think it is either.
No, look, it's got the potential to do it. It just doesn't gel. It just runs to the wrong positions. It doesn't run both ways all the time. It's got so much ability, but none of it is clicking yet. And I don't know whether it will it? There's Pendleby's,
94.
Amazing year, all things considered, how much you hated him at the start of the year, is that it's a big ask for him to back up that next year. Look,
he should be feeling, I can taper off a bit, another guy's going to take over.
But who's coming in to replace him?
I really think if the list that they have, they really need Sire, Wills and Adams to constantly be in the middle, to be the one guy fighting, scrapping to win it out. And then you put the other guys like Phillips and Pendles and Treloar on the outside. But those three guys, and plus with Sire and Wills, I mean, the one thing that shits me in terms of our list management is please stop recruiting short guys who are like 60 kilos.
Hi, Noble.
Not, I'm sorry, John, but I mean, they've been doing it for a while. I'd rather see Noble up forward, to be honest, but they've been doing it for a while. Sire, Wills, both 190 centimetres plus, really big, stand up in tackles, take hits and all that. And this is the way the game's going. The game's going to bigger players. It's not going to smaller players. It's constantly evolving to bigger players. So why do you keep trying to compete with these bigger sides with smaller fucking recruiting? I don't get it. So
maybe it's like cartoon characters. They just slip between their legs.
And I think if you have like guys like Sire and Wills and Adams and doing that hard work, and I would have thrown Greenwood in there before he did his knee, is you get that sort of West Coast type midfield where it's like there's no real superstar where you're going fuck, that Cripps type, but they're all really, really fucking good. And they're all contributing to a really good midfield. I mean, sorry, that's probably a little bit hard on guys like Shu and that who've been really good. But, you know, you look at some midfields and they have the genuine superstar, you know, who is like that Cripps. And we probably don't have that anymore. And I think the best midfields, if you go back, like, you look at our 2010 flag side, the midfield was, you had the bloody constant run of Swan, the class of Pendlebury, the dash of Thomas, the grunt of Ball, and it was just, they all did different things and they all complemented one another. And then you had all these peripheral guys like Willingham and all that. And it was just such a great midfield that complemented one another, and they don't do it at the moment.
No, and there's still the underlying issue out of it all too, is they just collectively get smashed in the clearances each week.
Yep, and none of them seem to be practiced. Stevenson, where's he play?
Still forward for me. I think he's very dangerous up there, and he needs to put on a bit of weight to run in the midfield.
I would play him up forward, but I'll give him some runs on the wing, just to start grooming for that. Finally, your whipping boy still side bottom.
This is the awkward one.
I'll say what I said before. I probably get criticised for bagging side bottom, like I don't like him. I do really like side bottom. I think he, as a midfielder, he's a very good player. But when I hear he's elite, it just makes me think he's not elite. You know, and if you think he's elite, you're overvaluing him. Dustin Martin's elite. Nathan Fyfe is elite. Patrick Cripps is elite. Do you seriously put side bottom in the same grouping as those players? And that's not a criticism of Cyber. That's just those other three guys. They're genuinely elite players. I remember, like going back 20 years, Buckley, Voss, and Hurd were like always the three elite players at the top. And then you had guys just under them like Scott West and Robert Harvey. Sidebottom, I think, actually has the capability to be an elite forward.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
As a forward, I see him take the game on with a temerity that I don't see him do as a midfielder.
And he's got pretty good goal awareness too.
And he'll do things like he'll try and shrug tackles, he'll do sidesteps. He does not do that. As a midfielder, he often runs, stops, props, kicks it backwards. As a forward, it's like, I'm going to take this on. I'm going to balk a guy. I actually thought he used to do that as a midfielder, and he just doesn't seem to do it anymore. But in terms of the way we look at our list, I think sometimes we look at guys and go, well, this is how great they are. And the truth is, let's be really honest. How do you compare them with players at other clubs? And Sidebottom is not an elite midfielder. To be honest, I don't think we have an elite midfielder to compare with those guys I've just named. The Goey's probably the closest in terms of elite parallel to Dusty as a forward. The Goey hasn't had time to prove it as a midfielder. But we don't have anyone in those three guys categories. I'd love Cripps at Collingwood. Then I wouldn't have to worry about clearances.
True.
So about the coaching staff. We're going through the list. Should we make changes in the coaching staff?
Definitely.
Who?
Buckley. Buckley, get rid of him.
Yeah. You were saying that in the prelim.
Look, I'm still not convinced by Bucks. As a tactical coach, I think
he's very solid.
He's as a people manager, I think he's improved leaps and bounds. He's doing great things with that list in terms of the way that they gel and they're playing for each other and playing for the club. He's gotten a lot out of them in the last 2 years. But you still
obviously love him.
But you still bang your head against some of the decisions and whatnot. But I don't think we're specifically talking about him.
No, the whole staff. I mean, you mentioned Rocker as a ruck coach.
Yeah, that one. And look, love Rock, but I don't understand it. Lockie is still hanging around there. What's he doing? You're keeping some of these guys here. And this is one of the mantras that I've opined about for a while is that everything wrong with Collingwood is the Collingwood people that keep coming back to the club. You're not bringing any great fresh ideas outside. You've got your own little sort of sanctum that you're just keeping around for what end, I'm not sure. I'd be still, look, I'm astounded, and I said it, I think, during the year, that once Hodge announced his retirement, why isn't he working for us? He's the perfect sort of bloke that you'd bring in. Comes from a winning culture, understands success, has an absolute staggeringly huge amount of proverbial inside of him, these are things that would be of enormous benefit to us. And from what I don't think we even spoke to him. Look, maybe he was earmarked for someone else. I'd like to hear that they at least went out and tried to get him. Now, coming back to Harvey. Harvey's been there.
I think he's been there since
pretty much. And look, at this stage, what changes you bring in? What structural thoughts are different to the ones that you've had? You've had a lot of time now. I mean, even for his own career, he should be moving somewhere else.
I mean, Gavin Brown did that.
Yeah, and I think you're just not getting a lot of fresh injection of ideas into that coaching area. So look, you had
all that nails the thing what you said. I unless you're winning flags every year and you're going, well, why would we change it? Are we doing that? No, apparently not. Fresh ideas. You need people from outside the system to come in and go, this is what we're going. Hodge's a really good example of someone I would have thought, hey, he's been playing for about 92 years. He comes from a really good winning culture. I can only imagine he did wonders at Brisbane on field and as a mentor off field. Seems like a perfect candidate.
Oh, look, I would have brought him in with the view of grooming him for a succession plan, because that's what we do in the competition now. But, look, let's assume the worst and we taper off in the next 2 to 3 years. That's Buckley's cards marked.
Yeah.
You've got to have something there, and I would have thought he would have been
unless it's Nick Maxwell,
the perfect guy. Well, actually, I think Maxwell has no aspirations to coach. No. He's going to be running the club in a couple of years' time.
Well, and they'll make a really
and I think he's a great acquisition back to Collingwood. That's one exemption to my
hypocrite.
Too much Collingwood in Collingwood.
My view would be really simplistic here. Is I actually would love. All right, actually, look at the guys they got. They got Buckley, played in 2 losing grand finals. They got Hocking, I think he played in about 4. And Harvey, I think he only played in the 1. Jeez, Harves, come on.
Lift your game.
Yeah. They haven't got anyone from a winning culture.
Actually, he would have played in 2, I think.
Harvey? Did he?
Yeah, didn't Saints make 2 and lose?
They made 2 against us. But he wasn't playing in 08. Was it 09?
It was 97.
97. He lost the one against Adelaide, but that's the only one they would have made when Ollie was playing. They haven't got anyone from a winning culture. And I'd love if they just got an outsider from a winning culture like Hawthorn, or just poach someone from Hawthorn and said, come, tell us some stuff, give us some new ideas. What are you doing? Hodge would have been the perfect guy because he's just finished playing, so he's obviously a really good on-field general, but there would be others like him. Just change it up every now and again, and...
Like they brought in...
Longmuir seemed like such a vital injection of new ideas.
Well, I think Hocking to a certain extent, because he was part of the midfield group. Or was he midfield? Or
I don't know.
I think he was. But he's been moved now into the VFL.
I like that appointment.
And they brought in... what's his name from Geelong, West Coast?
Oh, that guy.
The head ducker's brother.
Yeah, Selwood,
that's it. But, look, Dangerfield, who's pretty much running the competition these days, tweeted that we got a beauty there. So, look, I'll reserve judgment on that. But clearly he's got aspirations and he must have something good behind him. So, look, that one at least will be interesting. But again, it's not from a winning... No. I suppose, he tasted a little bit of success, but he didn't play in a premiership or anything with West Coast, did he?
He might have played in one of those, in that 06 one, or whichever one it was they won. Yeah, I just think they need to change it. I mean, it's really got less to do with the particular individuals there, but the fact that, you're not winning flags at the moment, so you need to find that edge, and it's not going to come from the same people who've been there for 10 years.
No, it's time for change.
And that's, no offense, I mean,
and just token changes just doesn't feel enough.
Or moving them around. So I would really be headhunting particular people. They would surely know if in their own circles who are really good targets. And even guys like Alan Richardson, who might not have been... I mean, I don't think Zakilla did him any favours if he's recruiting and all that. Might not have been a successful senior coach. But when he was at Collingwood as developmental coach, he was fantastic. And just getting guys like that who have actually been senior coach and gotten more of a taste of it. Like Brett Radden's another really good example. Senior coach at Carlton, got sacked, and he did a few apprenticeships here and there. And he's got another senior gig, but he obviously has quite a bit of intel to offer. So there'd be guys who've been around the traps for a while and bring him in. And just regenerate, some of the outlooks and all that sort of stuff, because, you finished 2nd and 4th who cares? Our favourite thing, injuries. Should we build a 70 million...
This has only got a capacity for another 7 hours.
Yeah, okay. Should we build a $70 million facility to... We can rebuild this, man.
Well, see, this is the bit that shits me. I mean, that is just a... It's I think I made the statement during the rant, so excuse me if I said the same thing, but it's the folly of like saying, we're going to go to war, but we don't think there's going to be anyone wounded, but just in case there is, here's a $70 million hospital. It's like, maybe go to the source, what's causing these injuries. And as much as Eddie comes out with on the radio with his little narkiness around, well, don't you think we've looked at that? Well, no. Clearly not.
Yeah, no, they have.
Because nothing's changed. You had Swanee coming out...
I was going to mention that.
With a tweet... a couple of months ago, I think, saying that he had to train in runners because the ground was so hard there. Well, what more do you need?
The one thing with Eddie saying, hey, we've thought of all this shit and blah, blah, is I do wonder if publicly they cannot acknowledge that there's an issue, because if they do, then there'll be players who might come back and say, my career was shortened or derailed by the fact that I trained.
That's the thing.
Let me sue you now for tens of millions.
You drive around and you see plenty of suburban ovals torn up and relayed every year. Why we don't see it?
There's one just down the road here.
Then why aren't we doing ours under the guise of that? If we know it's wrong, rip it up, put foam rubber down underneath it, whatever it takes, resurface it. No one's any the wiser.
Well, they should. And whatever the injury management is, because, I mean, you get the one thing of there's obviously something that's contributing to the breakdown of players, because it's been happening for 8 years. You cannot say it's bad luck now 8 years in. But you look at Hawthorn, and I know we draw Hawthorn as a parallel or as a standard, and it's like, and the reason we do that is because they're fucking successful, and you look to the best. You don't look to emulate Gold Coast, you look to emulate the best. Scully wasn't expected to ever walk again. He played a whole season. Patton's gone there. He'll
win the Coleman. I'm
going to
put money on him now. So he'd be paid about $9,000.
You look at someone like Cirioli, who had chronic hamstring injuries early in his career, and they rehabbed him. And he was he still had the occasional hamstring, but he was very reliable after that.
Burgoyne, he's 842 years old, and
even guys like
he signed up for another 5 years there.
Even guys like Mitchell and Hodge and Lewis all played into their 30s. Then, whatever you call it, medical management, fitness management, rehab.
Beautiful, pristine ground conditions.
It's brilliant, So why don't we go and poach their guys and just offer them more money?
Why don't we dig up their training surface and bring that over?
Why don't we just train on their surface?
On the back of a truck at midnight.
We can beat Hawthorn in the grand final.
Yeah.
Swap jumpers before the game. Yeah. But nothing's changing. 8 years in, nothing's changing. And that's the frustrating thing. It's like, hey, nothing's wrong. Let's just fucking keep doing what we're doing and hope that we'll get some games into these players next year. And you get things like, Moore jogs off. Oh, yeah. It's only a 2-week injury, and 12 weeks later, he's back. The goalie will only miss 10 days. 9 weeks later, he still isn't fucking in. It's ridiculous. And you're only sabotaging yourself. You're not, and you're pissing everyone else off, but you're self-sabotaging because you can't get your best players out there to fucking do anything. Yeah, well, apparently it is.
Oh, maybe get NASA involved then. Or Google Earth. Can't they see our surface and penetrate it?
No one can penetrate our surface.
No, because it's made of concrete.
So looking ahead to next year, what would you do? Changes going into the season? Well, forward or back? Just one word.
I'd stick with back.
You're wrong. What else?
Well, all this is predicated on addressing...
Let's say we have full staff, a full list.
I'd still look at playing Cox out of the square at the start of the season.
Yep.
I wouldn't push De Goey into the midfield yet. I'd still leave him up forward being dangerous next to Stevenson and Elliott. However, though, it gives more of an opportunity to rotate him out with Elliott.
The De Goey one, for me, would be a bit more contingent upon what's happening in the middle. So if the middle's struggling and I start moving...
When he switches into the middle, his impact is generally immediate. And that's doing those stupid little thing called clearances.
Yeah.
I think his work with Grundy could be sublime, but I just don't think he's got the endurance yet to last there. So, but I'd be looking at shifting more of that time there. I'd stick with.
So you don't want more in fullback.
I'd stick with Elliott where he is. I think he could build on a good year, hopefully, and certainly, as I said before, Stevenson, I'd keep in. He could snag 40 plus goals easily in a year.
So agree with the bulk of that. The goalie
midfield, I'd be at the moment I'm torn between. The midfield needs Adams.
Yeah.
We also need one of Sire or Wills in there. As you know, I was very impressed with Wills. My concern about him is his pace. I think Sire probably gives a better all-round solution, but I wouldn't be adverse into rotating. I don't think we can play all three every game.
I reckon we need to try it. The thing I like about Wills...
It's going to rob us of a fair bit of pace, though.
Oh, well, who cares?
And reliability with kicking.
The thing with Wills, though, is quickest player to 100 tackles. He tackles a fuck of a lot, and you need that.
That's an upside. That's a definite upside.
I mean, I'd try it. I mean, you're granted for too slow, but I'd try it because I'd hope that you play those guys, which then releases guys like Treloar and that to the outside, and then you get some pace back, which we didn't get this year from Treloar because he's being stuck in the middle too often. So you get guys like Treloar and Phillips on the outside. The other guy I mentioned was side bottom up forward. I'll be rotating him around. Yep. I'll probably do, for like about 6 to 8 weeks, do triangular rotation between Sidey, the goalie, and Stevenson, with them all taking turns, either in the middle or on the wing.
Well, Stevenson, he played a fair bit of time rebounding off defence at the start of
that worked well
this year, but no, it didn't work well. But you don't know until you try, and you've got to have a sustained period at it. And I think at the worst case in that sort of things, you learn a little bit about a different way of playing. That
frustrates me a bit because... You know, like we talk about, like, try different things. But that's one thing that generally was fucking working last year. So it's like, well, why are you changing that one? Why don't you change something that wasn't working and
change the broken ones?
Yeah. Not the, you know, it amazes me. It's like when they reboot movies. It's like, why are you rebooting a hit? Go reboot one that didn't quite work and fix it. You know, it doesn't make sense to me. Sidey I'd play out for. I really think he could be a fucking elite forward and kick, seriously, 40, 50 goals. The guy I would like to push in the middle, because you would anticipate that Scharenberg and Quaynor and possibly Nathan Murphy will start getting games in defence, is Maynard. I wouldn't mind seeing him in the middle. To me, he reminds me, he's got a bit of Mullane about him. He's really got a bit of anger when he plays. He's got a lot of physicality. He's probably a better kick. He is a better kick than Mullane. He's got a raking kick. And he's got a bit of pace. And I am trying to inject a bit of pace in there. So he's one I would like to see, rather than Crisp, who was the one who was in the middle a bit this year. Maynard, to me, seems to like the grunty stuff more than Chris. Chris likes being a little bit free and run and then take it on.
Like Flipper.
Yeah. So that's what I would like to see. In terms of, you know, I'd like to see Tyler Brown get some games.
Yeah, definitely.
And Will Kelly maybe get a couple, but... You know, I don't know how heavy they're going to be. How heavy they're going to be next year. Tyler Brown's like about 60 kilos, and
he's a waif.
And Will Kelly's like about 48 kilos.
There was a picture of him recently on Instagram, and I think they were standing side on. It was hard to tell.
No, if you're standing side on, you wouldn't see.
Yeah, there's nothing of them, and you know, surely look at it's. I mean, if you want to fatten them up, come and live with me for a week. But yeah, I think they need to put on. I think obviously muscle mass and a bit of weight and fill out those bodies. I mean, they are gangly and whatnot, but we need solid bodies.
And the one thing I'd really like to see, going back to Grundy, is I would like them to tell him, you know what, if we are not winning taps to advantage, start just punching the ball 25 metres. And you know what, let's just fucking stop fucking around, finesse, and then just, Brisbane did it in their free-peat, just punch the ball forward, have some pre-range signal, fucking tap the shoulder, I'm punching the fuck out of it, and reset 25 metres down the ground.
And generally, overall, that means that defence is rock solid now that Moore's back down there.
No, he's not.
How's a bit curious one, because how old is he? He'd
29.
Yeah, okay. Is he that? I thought he'd be a little bit older.
I don't know.
So I think there's going to be some contingencies in preparation for changes in defence next year as well, because you're probably going to have some taper off of form, some that are.
Well, Schoenberg's the one who's really going to have to step up now.
Oh, look, and I've got a great belief that he will. It's always he's just one of those players. You look at him saying, "Is that stumble the moment you just done another knee?" You'll always be really guarded around that one.
The one I'd be open to trying down back is fucking Reed, and just saying, you know what.
I wouldn't factor him into any plans.
I wouldn't be factoring, but like I'm saying, if he's fit and able, he was an All-Australian centre half back.
Buckley's really hesitant though to play him down there.
Just out of curiosity, which do you think would be taking a more toll physically, playing forward or back as a key positioner
At Collingwood?
Anyway.
Forward.
Yeah, you think that would be more a physical toll because you have players double, triple, quadruple teaming you. You'd be standing under the ball and fucking players would be jumping on you.
You're also doing a lot of zigzag running, trying to find or run into space. Defenders pretty straight on.
You do realise that at Collingwood we do a lot of zigzag running all over the ground.
That's because of the way the ball comes in.
Yeah, no, but just we cross. Yeah, but I would really just hope that Schoenberg steps up and can actually just have a bit of luck, because he's had a lot of fucking bad luck since he was drafted. And, make that centre half back position his own. Hopefully Langdon can come back.
Is he tall enough to hold down it? I don't think he is.
I think he's that sort of tweening height. Now,
he doesn't have the mobility of Maxwell, but he has that same sort of nous. He's a good reader of the ball coming in.
But if you're playing like that Josh Gibson type, yeah. But it's that sort of thing. It's always going to be who do you match up on, So if you're playing a side with more moderate talls, he'd get the second one. He's never going to be able to man up on like a Ben Brown or anything.
It's not great one-on-one, or I don't seem to have a lot of great memories of it.
But I mean, he's still young and has
that's
a lot of experience.
And that's the thing with his age. He's only like 23, 24. If his knees hold up, he could still be a very, very good player. And that was one I was a little bit disappointed to hear that Barrett said when he was shoveling his own shit off his face. That he was potentially being shopped around. I think Barrett said it, but you could actually just amalgam most journalists into one mould. That he was being shopped around this year, which I thought that was a little bit of a mistake. Considering the time and investment you're putting into him and the patience you've exhibited, you've got to give him a crack at it.
I'd be really curious if he was shopped around. I mean, it fucking annoys me.
He wouldn't be worth anything though now.
He couldn't be, yeah. I mean, just really be clearing him out for, I don't know, whatever reason. Yeah, but it fucking annoys. I mean, it happens at every club, but it's like Scharenberg, didn't play against GWS the first time when they smashed us, and they chose for Appleby. Yeah, and then he got knocked out against Essendon, and then he wasn't picked for the final, and people go, "Oh, he must be on the Yada." It's like, really? Because no one's ever been dropped in a football game ever. It just must mean that fucking the coach hates you. And there's all these messages, did you see the body language between Buckley and Scharenberg at training? It's like, no, there was nothing there.
And of the 17,000 photos that were taken, it's quite easy to find the right one that represents
it's like that fucking
contrived move.
The GWS game when they played Appleby was like, hang on, you'd realise Scharenberg came back from an ACL like a week ago and you expect him just to walk straight back into the senior team.
And travel.
Yeah. It's just the shit that comes out that people read into just like innocuous situations. Like, oh, he's fucking been dropped. They must hate him.
He's come back to Adelaide.
Oh, fuck.
With Grundy.
Just see what he's doing with Buckley and his head down. Fuck. Anyway. Finally. So going back around to...
Back to the Future?
Unconditional love. How do you feel about the club moving forward? Now, before you answer this, I'll have to disclose some personal information. You told me your son was flirting with supporting Hawthorn.
Yeah, I can talk about that. Am I talking about that up front, or I'll come back to that?
Before you go on, we're going to come back to this, because this is a whole group of things. I have several people I know who are really speculating about renewing their membership next year. I know of one who has quit his membership after 31 years with Collingwood.
Well, it's actually an interesting...
Can I tell this story really quickly? So I'll mention his name because he's said it publicly. Taz, who was a former Rantis when the Collingwood Rant was a website. 31 years. He sent a long letter to the club saying, this is why I'm quitting the club. After 31 years. Club sent him an email back going... Oh, well, okay.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
I have a Carlton friend who about 5-6 years ago, after Carlton had a bit of an exodus of players, I think Kane Lucas had just gone to Adelaide, he said, fuck, I've had it, I'm quitting the club. And he told the club, he goes, I'm not renewing my membership. Carlton president Mark Lagaducci, I think that's how you pronounce it,
Came to his house.
rang him up and talked to him and said,
That's the best thing.
and just said, well, we don't want you to quit, we understand your frustration, but we want people who are playing for Carlton, blah, blah. Taz...
Wouldn't have taken a lot of effort, though, to ring the 5 disgruntled members they had back then.
Taz told me that Collingwood did get back to him, say they've misplaced his email.
They called him Gaz.
So, with all this shit going, I know you have the fanatical supporters there who are just going to support him regardless, but you have a number of disgruntled people. I probably didn't go to as many games this year as I usually would. I know you didn't. I know a number of people who didn't, and it's just because... I mean, I have to give some of the credit to the AFL for fucking up the game with fixturing and ridiculous rule changes and all that bullshit that they do that really just destroys the fabric of the game.
There's facets of the game that even going there gives you the shits. Kiss cam and the crap that they barrel on as entertainment and stuff. Yeah, I'm going to a game of football. I'm absorbed in the contest. At halftime, I want to read stats. I want to see what's happening. I don't want to see people kissing each other or wank cam go off into the bloody crowd and see who's having one off the wrist or whatever the fuck it is this week. None of it is interesting.
No.
And I don't know what it is, because maybe you're trying to attract a younger type of client these days. But I was about to say before, there's an interesting thread on EB&W at the moment where Val Venice's body double, who we met at the Cricks before the last debacle, and he started the thread about saying he's considering chucking his membership in at the end of the year and was seeking people's opinions. There's a lot of people that posted on that board. I don't know of them. They're post our foray into that area, but. Similar stories about disenfranchised with the game. No one's actually, I think, sort of singling out Collingwood, which is staggering. But there's elements there for the older supporter where it just doesn't feel like it's something that you want to be dragged to anymore week in, week out. Like we were fanatical with it in the previous decade. You'd be freaking out if you're going to miss a game.
And
you're organising your entire life around the fixture.
And just before you go to this. I mean, I recall some of the fucking best times we had, like in 04, 05, when we were, shit. But it was just fun going. Yeah, but it was fun going, it was fun sitting there. It was just fun watching the game, even though we were a shit club. Because I don't want people to sort of think, people are, these people are giving up because they don't like it, it's getting tough. I mean, they're giving up fucking when we're preliminary finalists and grand finalists. So that actually says something.
Yeah, and it just you brought up my son before there. It's channeling that energy into your kids. Yeah, I had no choice but to follow Collingwood, and right from the outset, you felt a fanatical devotion to them. You had bragging rights back then. This is obviously 400 years ago, but you defended it to the hilt. You were trying. You made grand finals, that sort of thing. There was something there to be excited about. But you see a real, and then there was a lot of us around back then too, and there's still a lot of us around. But I think this is a real dangerous tipping point time for the club, because you go to things like Auskick, and we talked about this during the season, just one or two Collingwood jumpers, and kids will gravitate towards who's successful.
Can I just jump in really quickly? What did your sister say following the 1981 grand final?
Which one? 1981. Oh, well, she got dropped off. We watched the game at a friend's place. She got dropped off, and she just ran up to me at the front yard and said, "I'm barracking for Carlton now. They win premierships. Collingwood don't." And fast forwarding to about 3 weeks ago, this is one of the several conversations I'm having with my oldest son, who's only 7, but he's fully aware now that we fail at the hurdle, and this is what we're ingraining in our next generation of supporters: the expectation of failure. He's talking about, Hawthorn win flags. And look, it's natural they gravitate. Obviously at school they talk about successful clubs. He's got nothing to go in there with and brag about, other than the fact that we have a lot of supporters.
Let me jump in. So about, 8 years ago, I think it was, what year are we in? Yeah, about 8, 9 years ago, Brendan Gale came out for Richmond.
He came out.
Took over whatever fucking position he has there, and he had this agenda. He goes,
Head of curly hair, I think it is.
Yeah, but he said, we want to have 100,000 members, and we want to win multiple flags, and blah, blah. And he went on, and we all just sort of went, ha, you fucking idiot.
Richmond, as if.
Well, they did it, so good on you.
Who's the dickheads now?
Yeah.
Well, I mean...
Yeah, you look at it.
Yeah.
Hawthorn has a blueprint that goes to 2050.
How many flags they got by then? All of them?
All of them. But they actually have broken it down, compartmentalised it, saying this is what we want in these blocks up to 2050, and it mentions how many flags they want to win and shit like that. Do we have a fucking plan? I don't know. Do we have a plan? I can't...
apart from having a representation in every sport. But this reminds me sometimes, just talking about it now, about having that representation. It's like when we had that Collingwood Warriors soccer team. And
what side?
And you have these dalliances. Look, and I think it's a lot more entrenched that this is inevitable, this is where it's going to go now. But I don't know whether, like, Hawthorn have any ancillary sides or anything like that, or Geelong, do they have a do they distraction? I mean, their focus seems to be a little bit more, like, Hawthorn live and breathe winning flags, and that's that place that I wish that we were gravitating towards, just that fanaticism. You walk into that club and they just talk flags.
So you mentioned, you've mentioned it previously on the rant, Russell Green, when you went from St Kilda to Hawthorn.
He said he was in shock about that was the cultural difference between those two clubs was a
I've heard, I don't know if it's still the case, but someone else told me, hey Crimo, someone else told me that at Hawthorn they have the number of the flag they're going after up, so everyone sees it. This is what we're going for next. This is what we're going for next. That single-minded focus and devotion to an ideal surely ingrains within everyone there, from the coaching staff to the playing staff. You have Alistair Clarkson, who fucking doesn't want to give the full forward on the side who's 17th on the ladder, or whatever it was at that stage, 100 goals. He wants to deprive him that little bit of pleasure. And
which I respect.
Oh, I love that. Oh, fuck, I read that, I was going, this is what I would do,
But we are nice people.
Then that's the problem. Is like, do we have... When we talk about ruthlessness, and it's like, one of my issues when trying to support Collingwood, and, when I wrote that big piece, is like, there is something fundamentally wrong inside that club. And I don't blame the people there now for creating it, but they are perpetuating it. In Eddie Maguire's tenure as president for the last 20 years, this is not his fault, but, he's won one flag, lost 4 grand finals and drawn 1, which is pretty much par for Collingwood over the course of our history. We just lose flags. The John Hickey administration in the 70s and 80s, they lost 4 and drew 1. And you go back over the 60s and that, and the 50s, we're constantly losing 3, 4, 5 flags. Why do we keep doing this? We fucking talked about it, but to me, it really frustrates me that no one there seems to be going, I'm going to fucking try and change this. The one time we had an administration who tried to change it, they failed spectacularly, was the New Magpies in 83, who, for the younger supporters, we had this real tight spendthrift administration who refused to buy players, kept losing these grand finals, and the Magpies challenged them and said, we're going to buy everyone. And they went out and did that and almost bankrupted the club, and they just bought whoever the fuck was just laying around. They didn't even give a shit who they were buying. They just said, yeah, take this guy.
Sold.
Yeah, mouse.
Bag him and tag him.
Nothing really seems to be changing, which is what frustrates me. And as I said, Buckley's the only one I actually feel sees that and he's challenging it, but whether he can...
No, I think, getting back, I don't know whether I said it earlier, but as much as I loved Eddie's tenure, I think it's time to come to an end and bring something fresh like in as a president over the top of the club. Look, he's been a wonderful servant. He's one of the unsung heroes of Collingwood. Well, not unsung, he probably sings it himself. But it's time for a change.
You know who I'd like to be president?
Me.
You know who else I'd like to be president?
Trump.
You know who else I'd like to be president? John Smith. Who the fuck's John Smith? I don't fucking know. Somebody I don't fucking know. Just go in there. I don't want to fucking hear from you ever.
It has to be a non-Collingwood type though.
Yeah.
I want someone to come in with a fresh perspective and coming from a successful background. Not so much about successful in business or whatever, but successful from a club that's had cultural wonder and cultural success and on-field success, and bring some of those ideals. I think you need someone to come in with a fresh set of eyes, because as much as Eddie's been there 20 years, he's been hanging around the club for years prior to that. what he sees, and look, he's done great work. I mean, we're viable, financially sound, some great initiatives and things being done. We're still failing in the same key area though, and I need someone to come in.
Well, that's what frustrates me. Is
different and shake the place up a little bit.
Going into Eddie's tenure, so they took over in '99, and in 2000 they unfurled Malthouse into Lexus and shit like that. And then they got to a grand final in 02, and I just remember fucking going to that grand final, because I'm an idiot, thinking, oh fuck, we'll win this one, and that's it. And I thought this is pretty much...
It'll tie the room together, man.
Since 81, well, actually, first grand final I went to was 80, but since 81, I kept thinking, we just need to win this one, and just fucking break open the failure box that surrounds the club, and then bang. And I thought if we win I thought 90 was going to do it, but we fucked that up. 02, I thought if we win the grand final 3 years after a wooden spoon, fuck, that'll just totally reinvent this club. We lost. And then we lost another one. I was like, oh fuck, okay. And then we won in 010, I thought, well, this is the chance now, because it's a young, and we'll fuck that up. And we talked about this quite extensively, but it just, to me, it really is exasperating that you sort of keep hitting the same fucking wall.
They need to win one. At the moment, there is just a real sense of apathy going around the supporter base. As much as that majority that just undyingly love them, there's going to be a time when even their patience is tested. And I don't think the next generation of supporters
die of old age.
Are going to be that loving and understanding. I think that era of supporter is dying. Well, I think you've got to look at them objectively and expect and demand results. And I think that's where the next generation of supporters is going to be very, very judgmental.
You know what I think's humbled this club, and it's contributed to the apathy, is for as long as I've followed them, they've always hung their hat on some shit or another. I mean, going back to the 80s, it was like we're on 13 flags, blah, whatever. And then going through the 2000s and early 2010s, it was like, oh, we've got the most members. And then Richmond just blew them the fuck out of the water. And it was almost like, you know what? You're just a fucking nothing club now. You don't have the flags, you don't have the members. What the fuck do you have? You were holding on to all these, talking about, oh, we got this and that. You know, and there was none of this talk about Richmond like there was with Hawthorn and shit when they were having big membership surges. Oh, they're signing up dogs and pets and blah, blah. It was just Richmond. You just appreciated the fact that they awakened the fanatical within their fan base through success. And they backed it up to their fucking great credit this year. And for me, it's like Collingwood just constantly hung their hats on prior accomplishments. It's like, oh...
they still do. They live in the past.
And that whole, you know, when Hawthorn was on did their free-peat, and, you know, you had Collingwood fans go, oh, they can't fucking... They can't tie our four.
No, the same in Brisbane were going for it.
It's like, I wanted Brisbane to fucking break, because it's like...
That's the last vestige of hat hanging that we have left.
You know, just fucking...
Only side the win 4 in a row 100 years ago.
I mean, that's great, you know, by that by those sides, but it's like, you know, can we stop hanging our hat on history and make some new fucking history? And that we can't do that we don't even actually seem to attack that with the tenacity that it deserves and a single-minded focus that doesn't seem to actually emerge from the club. But they really just seem to exist like a lot of other clubs because it's just part of the competition and they're just one part of it. It generates that apathy that you've talked about, and it just makes me think, well, I really get frustrated and angry and sad when we fucking lose. If we lose on the Friday night, that's it. You fucked up my whole weekend, you know. And if we lose, people who see me over the next week, but when I see them for the first time, it's like, you seriously better not say the wrong thing because I will fucking lose my shit because we lost, you know. And I feel like I'm investing all that energy and emotion into it, and they could not give a fuck. And it's like the response to Taz. Sorry, we misplaced your email.
No, that's it.
It's like a metaphor for Collingwood.
There is no Collingwood membership department now. It's all outsourced to Ticketmaster, one of the greatest fucking debacles of an organisation I've ever encountered in my life, and it doesn't half show.
No.
You know, it's just ridiculous. There's just no care now. You're just a source of income, essentially. It's outsourced to them. They manage it in terms of, you give me money, I give you a ticket. That's as much as we ever want to cohabitate with. You know, it's one of the funniest things is, you know, I don't want that member polo that I keep getting every year. And you give me no fucking unclick option on my ticket disaster guest thing. I've emailed the club for 3 years running, and they said we'll take care of it, which is just going back to Ticketmaster anyway. And every year I still keep getting this polo I don't want. And yeah, well, that's just endemic of about the care factor and the listening that just isn't happening there.
Well, the thing too, I remember like it was probably over 10 years ago now, but I was getting all those bullshit emails. Like I'm fucking basically spamming. It was like, 6 hours to the game, sign up for this. And I was getting sick of these fucking emails, and like I'd keep trying to unsubscribe, and I couldn't do it. And I rang up the fucking club. This is when the membership department was just there, and I go, well, I'm trying to unsubscribe. They go, well, you logged in. I go, well, I wasn't even aware I had a login. They go, yeah, it's this. It's like I've never registered that login. I've never registered that password. You just assigned it to me, and then assigned me all these fucking emails, and then I finally got out of them. But it's like, why are you forcing shit down my throat that I fucking don't want? And when I actually try and follow it up, it goes through this huge rigmarole to fucking get an answer. So I'm swearing a lot now because it's frustrating that you really get to this point of...
It's like, your engagement at the moment is you're emailing me 14 times a day to bid on match day jumpers from Anzac Day or something this year. 6 hours to go, 5 hours to go. I don't fucking care. I don't want to buy somebody's old jumper. And especially in a nothing game. You know, like great Anzac Day, you win them, but it's a nothing thing. You win a flag, I'll bid on a jumper then.
Yeah.
But ultimately, and this is the other thing with the merchandising stuff now these days, is they know that they make money out of the match day worn jumpers. They change the jumper every quarter in a grand final just so that you can say, well, here's 4 copies of this match day worn jumper and the warm-up jumper and this old pair of underpants that you can all bid on. Why is the club trying to make money out of bidding on old bits of football merchandise?
I don't know. It's I don't know if it's just a passive revenue generator or whatever, but it's like almost when you see him post stuff on Twitter like, oh fuck, the goalie, how special, and they show a highlight from the grand final. It's like, mate, don't show us the fucking grand final. You know, just
why don't you give me a nice paper cut and pour lemon juice in it? There is just a bit of a disconnect, I think, with the club and the supporter base. Now, I think they think they're doing the right thing. Like the Twitter feed these days is a farce. The things that they talk up and the positive spins they try to put on debacle performances it's just the wrong thing to say at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And it's just a lack of awareness about what it is to follow a club. It's like, if you don't get it and you work there, then why are you expecting us to just absorb it all? When we get angry, we don't like it. I don't get it.
I don't get it either, but...
And we don't get flags either.
Anyway, I think that's it. I think
we've waffled long enough. There's about 17 days of your life you're not getting back. So don't come asking for a bill.
And I think we're just kidding about all of it.
It was just a dream.
It's to the Scooby-Doo ending. Would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those damn kids.
That pesky club.
Yeah. Anyway, if you've stuck with us this long, thanks for watching. We'll be back sometime out there.
When we think of some other shit we want to say.
Yeah.
Alright, thanks for enduring this.
Later.